Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Scratch a Track podcast presented by the Dude and Grim Show and co-produced by Mr. IVEST. I'm the Dude.
And I am Grim. And today we are going down in the downward spiral.
Yes,
not the further downward spiral. We're not going to do the remix version. We're just doing the standard, not the compromised second draft. So.
Definitely not. So Grim, this was released March 8th, 1994. Now, to put a few things in context, let's just bring ourselves back to 1994.
Okay. I'm 13.
Some of the popular films of that year, Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, Shawshank Redemption, Natural Born Killers. Some of the top albums from 1994. We got Super Unknown, Definitely Maybe, Illmatic, Dookie, Ready to Die, Ill Communication, Weezer's Blue Album, and Vitalogy. So just want to frame things a little bit.
Not exactly like a light year for really anything in
dude,
popular culture, the arts.
Yes, a very solid year for music. Now, I think as I've gotten older, my perception of this album may have changed a little bit. I think maybe when I was younger, I didn't fully appreciate the intensity and everything that was going on. Dude, a lot of it was about.
It was like I knew Closer because Closer was on MTV. Sure. You know, it like you knew that. And I don't know what it was. I liked that song. I always thought it was sweet, but it was also one of those albums where I'm like, I just associated it with like the people that they were a little like darker and more out there than I was. It just didn't seem like my kind of scene at that age. Yeah. But like you said, as I got older, I really grew to like Nine Inch Nails. And I would say even more like around the time of college, I think was when it all kind of really clicked. Like when With Teeth came out. And then, of course, you go backwards in the catalog. It was just pretty dark for me as a kid.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm going to sound like such an old man now, but there was criticism of this album when it came out.
Yeah.
And now being over 40 years old, looking back at it, I'm like, geez, man,
I get it.
This is there's some heavy shit. Like he was,
there's no way a 13-year-old kid should have went out and bought this record.
Yeah. It's
not for 60.
Them. Yeah. He was born in 65. So when he recorded it in 92, 93, that puts him at 27, 28 years old. And he had already had, Pretty Hate Machine was successful, toured, put out Broken, then had this one, and they had done sort of the Lollapalooza circuit, and that was a big sort of inspiration, I guess, for everything that kind of like embodied this album, what it came to be, and everything that he was feeling and going through at the time. But for someone who's 27, 28 years old, who has gone through some serious shit and who is writing about it. Yeah, that's some heavy stuff for younger kids to be listening to.
That's heavy stuff for someone of his age.
Yeah. Good.
No, I was just going to say, and if you sum up the whole, like, sort of the Cliff Notes version of the album is like somebody is sort of in a self-destructive path and goes down the spiral and ends up killing themselves. I mean, like, if you just want to surmise the whole thing like that, that's a dark journey for anyone, but especially a kid who just doesn't really know, as they would say, their ass from a hole in the ground yet.
Yeah. So the thing is, though, what I think is what I love about this album is that I would describe this album as disturbingly beautiful. And it is I think it's probably the most authentic album like ever recorded. I just think for where it comes from inside of Trent Reznor, like, dude, all these emotions, all these thoughts, all these feelings, all these struggles, like, dude, they're all real, man. And the way it comes out, I just feel like this album, it kind of captures just how, like, you know, Miles Davis, I think with Bitches Brew, like he really wanted to capture like the process of creation, you know, and really record that.
This is the process of destruction.
Dude, I mean, part of it, but it's also, dude, I actually think of it more of the process of releasing all these things and all these demons inside. Not so much the end result. It's just the process of all of that shit coming out, man.
Very much like John Lennon's Scream Therapy that was manifested pretty heavily in Plastic Ono Band. Sometimes there's just a lot to get out.
There's a lot to get out. But dude, I just think, you know, the lyrics, I mean, it's one thing to be going through a tough time, be disturbed, have all these things, and to lyrically just be able to convey that, you know, oh yeah, I hate my dad, I hate my life, you know, I hate my job, I hate all this stuff. It's one thing to sing about that, but to have the music and the sound perfectly sync and match up to that is, I just think that's what makes this album great. I just do, man. I think it's hard. Like when I get done listening to it, it is emotionally draining. Like I am tired after I listen to this album because there's just so much going on. I just think it just goes. It's hard to stay in that place as a listener. I can only imagine what it would be like someone who's actually living this. Yeah. Some would call it a cry for help. There's just a lot of ways you can take it. Definitely. So, I know you kind of did the Cliff's Notes version, and it is considered a concept album. I'm sure that people out there have a lot of thoughts on the meaning of the album, how each track fits in, what each track means in all this stuff. I have not taken that deep of a dive. So definitely, if people have thoughts and opinions, let us know in the comments on what you think things mean, and if there's certain songs that have touched you or relate or that, and they can touch you in special ways too, or related to. Like definitely, let us know what you think. So yes. Now, one thing I have to say is, for me listening to it, I guess I don't really get emotionally affected by it as much, other than just like it's very aggressive, it's very dark. But I think, to me, and this is something that I'm sure we'll talk about, is the production of it is so interesting that I'm able to kind of focus on some of the technical aspects and the way things go together and transition. Sure. Where I guess I'm less in tune with the like super heavy emotional part, the weight that it carries. Yeah, I mean, again, I think a lot of people, and you look at it from definitely a technical perspective, I think a lot of people, especially, younger kids at the time, were probably reading like the liner notes, man, and like really like reading like what is he saying? What is he talking about? And there's a lot of stuff, the whispers, the background and all this stuff. And I think that if you read the lyrics and stuff, man, dude, it's there's some intense shit. There is. One thing, speaking of some of the background stuff, I liked how, at least in the primary article that people would read about it, which is typically Wikipedia, kind of references the spots where he pulled things out of movies, and that somebody had like made him a DAT tape, and that brought me back just thinking about a DAT tape of just like where those were pulled from. And I love how he kind of uses those samples in a very weird way. I think of the one, I think it's in The Becoming, it's like that scream. Dude, that is disturbing as fuck, man. I know, it's kind of awesome though. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, it is very cool that he did, pull from a lot of that stuff. And again, he said that a lot of this was, drum loops. He would have even like, he just record like 20 minutes of him just like playing shit on the guitar and stuff like that. And, just pull different things. He even and dude, this is 94, man, but he was throwing music. He had a Mac and he was throwing sounds and things into the computer. And that's dude. I know they talk about how advanced Trent Reznor is, but dude, yeah, for 1994 and him just like he didn't get, I'm sure there were people there helping him out, but dude, he's like the main guy doing this, and to have like, other engineers and producers and stuff, like I like how he likes to get his hands dirty. Like he's not afraid to do that. He doesn't say, hey, this is what I want. He makes what he wants.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is an interesting distinction. And I think it's probably because this said that, okay, so we can probably go into this now. So the bulk of it was recorded in the Cielo Drive house where the Manson family murders of Sharon Tate and those other folks were committed. So, wow, that's a start. And it really, I think that really comes through in the audio. Yeah. You can really hear the space. Yeah. But it said that he really wanted to, by moving in there and using some of the money they had, to get a big console and a couple of Studer machines, which typically I would think are 2-inch, 24 track reel to reels, or, some, the big tape machines. Mm-hmm. And I would want to confirm that because it didn't say that, but I would guess somebody like him who had worked because I think he started out working as like a janitor, super low level in a recording studio. So he had seen how things were done. So my guess is he probably, because digital recording at that point was not what it is today. So I'm thinking like tape is still your Bible,
probably your go-to.
Yeah. What if you're really going to do something professional, like that's what you're going to record it on. So I thought that was cool that they do that. And then in conjunction with that, he is using early computer sampling, and which makes sense because it just seems like it would be way too much to try to multi-track things on a computer. I mean, I bet you would remember when we would do things in college and sometimes you'd have to render it in real time, like whatever you did. I heard that back then, in which I was a kid, so I wasn't into this stuff yet, but back then it took like 3 times as long as real time. So you could have done something really cool and been like, oh, we're going to put this sound on it, and then wait for like 3 hours and be like, that's not really what I wanted.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting sort of time that blends those two technologies.
Totally. Well, kind of going back to the Tate house, I did read that when he actually initially got the house, he didn't realize it was the Tate house. It wasn't until he actually moved in that he realized that it was the Tate house. Now, I think there's, and judging by your face, there might be conflicting stories on that. But I
just didn't read that in depth. I'd believe you at this point.
I did, read that though, and also though he
got confronted by her sister.
By her sister, and her sister was basically like, "Look, are you doing this to like exploit my sister?" Because I can only imagine, and well, let me get back to that in a second. But, he had this conversation and, basically said, no, it's, it's kind of not what I was going for. But like the reality of how this affected someone in someone else's life really kind of sunk in at that point. He thought about, gosh, what if somebody had murdered my sister? And he even said like he went home and cried that night. Yeah. I mean, it's, it is a heavy kind of a heavy thing, but I can only imagine from like Sharon Tate's family, like their perspective of like, gosh, this horrible murder happened, right? And it's been publicized, but we've had to deal with this for like how many years now? And
never
now is
goes
this
away.
Yeah. And now is this person coming in and trying to exploit it. I even know that, there were some questions around, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when Tarantino was coming up with that movie. I don't think the sister or the family, I don't think they were so thrilled that it was kind of being, sort of based around that and everything.
That's fair, but like it or not, that happened, and in kind of like his response, it is a dark and interesting and scary part of like what becomes American folklore. And the story is just it's always gonna be a thing, whether people like it or not. And it's unfortunate. But the question that I have is, why was that house still standing at that point? I would have thought you would demolish, dude. I would have like moved out of the neighborhood after something like that happened, let alone that house. But I thought it was interesting that once he left, it was gone.
Yeah, it was gone. That is interesting.
Yeah, this was like the final thing to come out of it. And it's kind of perfect.
I feel like I did hear a story though that he, and I could be wrong, super fans let us know, that he actually did take the front door and brought that to New Orleans, and that was like part of his studio in New Orleans. I could be wrong, but I swear I heard that somewhere. Maybe I'm wrong. So
I would not want anything that even looked at that property, let alone was part of it.
Yeah, I'd definitely be good. So yeah, I mean, you know, we have talked, I guess, pretty much about everything, and the intensity, the darkness.
I did find the cover art bit interesting because I always wondered what it was and how one came about that cover art.
Yep.
And it sounds like it was actually a piece that was sort of like multiple media piece where there's like, it was done, I think it's set on a piece of wood, but then there was like some surgical tape and like it's just kind of
There's
cool
some wires and things.
Yeah, just like a really, and it again really fits with the whole thing. But one thing I did want to talk about is, now granted, a lot of this was him. I mean, I guess that he was working with the drummer for Porno for Pyros, who recorded some stuff, but the other interesting member that really got me was Adrian Belew. Now, you may remember that we did an episode on Remain in Light by the Talking Heads, and Mr. Adrian Belew was the gentleman who did a lot of those really cool, almost like Nintendo sounding guitar solos, because he has a really unique kind of style.
Yep.
So I thought it was cool that he was called in and did stuff on the album.
Mm-hmm. Well, Flood as a producer also was called in to kind of co-produce and help out. He had worked with U2 and Depeche Mode. And this ended up kind of being the last time they would work together, having creative differences. And essentially it sounds like things came to a head when Trent Reznor recorded or wanted to record a song called Just Do It.
I could see how that would fit in with the story.
Yeah. Dude, it's fucked up though, man.
It was either that or Jump. I don't know.
Because think about it. There's that, if you may remember, that girl was like texting with her boyfriend and basically told him to do it. He did it. And then she got charged with, I don't know what degree of like manslaughter, but essentially she got charged. And it's, you know, I mean, I don't know how far you go as a musician or, you know, legally, like, but I think that was one of the things a lot of people had a problem with. And it reminded me when I kind of, the way I think of it, like the movie Natural Born Killers, like when they submitted that to the MPAA to get a rating, like the MPAA came back with like a whole list of cuts. There wasn't just like one thing that they could pinpoint and say, oh, take this out or take this out. They're just like disturbed at the whole sort of chaos, right? Of that movie. I feel like a lot of people, that's the problem that they had with this album too. It's not like, oh, that one word or this line in the lyrics or this one song. Like this album just has a heaviness, man. And it has some very, again, like we've talked about, such serious stuff.
Like if it was a document, there'd be a lot of redactions.
Yeah, probably. And at that point it's like, well, you're not going to have much of an album. So
I figured the whole thing would just do it was he just didn't want to get a cease and desist from Nike. That was really what I was thinking.
It's probably what it was. Yeah. So what do you say, Grim? Should we go ahead and get into the tracks at this point?
I think we can. Yeah.
I think we can. All right. Well, we're going to start with track number 1, Mr. Self-Destruct. Dude, So I found it really interesting, and I didn't know this before reading this, that the initial like beating that you hear in the beginning is from THX 1138, which is George Lucas's film. Now it started off as I believe it was a student.
Why I know that.
Yeah, I believe it was a student film, and then I got funding to get, to have it make it a feature. But he did this before Star Wars, and I think
that's
before
for the
American
THX sound thing.
Graffiti. Yeah. But so, and I've never seen it, but essentially that's what the yeah, and dude, it's it's one of the most memorable ways I think to start an album, and it's pretty great how it just kind of builds and builds and builds and builds, and then it just punches in.
It do. Yeah. And that was one of the ones where I think it was most, I'm assuming there were other ones, but I think that was one of the ones that they noted that Adrian Blue put in a lot of guitar texturing and a lot of ambiance.
Yeah. Well, it's cool, man, because when we saw him live for the first time in Grand Rapids, this is the track they opened up with.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
That was pretty sweet, man. But like, it's again, there's a lot of lyrics and stuff. I am the needle in your vein, but I think my favorite line, I don't know why I've always been drawn to it, is I am the bullet in the gun. I am the truth from which you run. Dude, I love the way he sings it. In that part, the way he comes in, man. So it's I'm a big fan of Mr. Self-Destruct. Somebody's getting emails. Then Yep. Then we go to track number 2, Piggy. Oh, I should have said this about Mr. Self-Destruct, because I believe the same holds true with Piggy. So Piggy was initially a poem that extended into a full song, and I believe the same holds true for Mr. Self-Destruct as well. So,
I know you haven't asked yet, but Piggy's my favorite song on the album.
Is it?
Oh, dude, yes, absolutely.
Wow. It is pretty sweet.
The riff is just so good.
Yeah.
So good.
One thing I love is, dude, before the song starts, you hear him like take a breath.
Yeah.
Hey,
and I really love how the drums they sort of like get very disjointed and chaotic near the end.
Did you hear it, or did you read about how like that came about?
I did not.
So, dude, essentially, man, he was just he had set up mics to record and everything. He had the drums set up, and he was just doing a test. He was just going to do like a test, I'm getting, just to get levels in the sound. And so he recorded it and did the test, and he was just like, man, I like that too much and not to put it in the album. So that's just like him just like fucking around, dude.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
I do like that. And just the way that it ends, I think, is really cool, because it's probably one of the most subtle parts of the album.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when they play it live. He gets like the first half, he keeps it pretty chill, but then he like vocally, he, brings a lot more emotion and stuff to it. And you can see that in the, it's a great DVD set. I'm sure you can get it streaming somehow, but all that could have been, this is one of the songs that's really, really good on it. But I think, I think for the album, I think it works better that he stays kind of level the whole time. I just think that works a little better.
And I like some of the just like the off, like once the organ comes in, that's a nice subtle touch too. But I feel like there's these weird sort of distant like screaming thing that is looped from some movie or something. And that is such a nice touch that adds to the overall feel of just unease throughout.
Totally.
Like in this sense, it's unease. In other senses, it's like downright disturbing, but
yeah, right.
Right.
Yes. All right. Track number 3. How do you even pronounce it? Is it Heresy?
Heresy.
Heresy.
Yeah, that's basically like A heresy.
I thought it was for the longest time. I thought it was like hearsay.
No. A heresy is basically like a false claim against God or religion. Like people would be burned at the stake for being heretics in the old days, which basically like they would say God doesn't exist, or which very much ties into the lyrics.
Definitely. Yeah. It's dude, this one, I mean, first of all, I'll just talk about music. Dude, I love the way the song opens, man. Like that ding, 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 like, dude, it's so badass. And then the drums just, it just crunches, man. Crunches really hard. I always find the vocals a little funny, like the effect that he puts on the vocals. It almost sounds like insects are singing a little bit. Like it's got this weirdness to it, man.
There's a lot of that throughout, and I think it's most noticeable if you listen to Hurt, especially in headphones, because I want to say it's on the left side. There's a part of it that's just noticeably like fucked up. Like it's awkward. It's broken. It's like it doesn't. Broken. Yeah, not to be confused with the album. But there's a lot of that, and I think that's something you hear in a lot of his music, where he'll intentionally like do things to like subtly destroy the sound, which is kind of an interesting effect. There's
yeah, and it is cool, and I just always remember from this song being like, man, those vocals sound, there's something about it. It reminds me of like freaking like Starscream from Transformers. Like if he was singing, like that's what it would sound like.
Yeah.
But dude, this is one of those songs that, man, I'm kind of glad my mom never caught me listening to it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know we went to Catholic school growing up, and we don't have enough time to get into all the what we believe and feel and think and all this stuff. But dude, just the words, dude, he dreamed a God up and called it Christianity, and that God is dead and no one cares. If there is a hell, I'll see you there. Like that's dude. I mean, there's no subtlety there either. It's not like you don't even have to take a deeper dive into, it's pretty straightforward, man.
And I think that goes back to the earlier comments about like, not to all of a sudden, like you get older and be a prude, but you do get to a point in realizing what kids are going through and maybe should or should not be going through. It's not this at like age 12.
Yeah.
Or 13 or whatever I was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
I couldn't say that even at that time I didn't, disagree with him or anything, but it just, I guess I hadn't really come to putting it so eloquently.
Yeah. Very, very silver tongue fox. That's for sure. All right. Track number 4, March of the Pigs. Dude, the way this song just kicks off with the drumming is pretty sweet, man. It just hits, and it hits really hard. I love it's interesting because when they do it live, like when they on the recording, it's got the drumming intense part, and then it doesn't make you feel better, and then they go back to the intense part, and then they end the song with it, doesn't it make you feel better? When they do it live, they go at like a third time back into the like the intense part again. And I'm curious, like it's interesting. I'm curious, I love that they do it live. I'm curious if there was like a conscious thought not to do that on the album, or if it was almost like after the fact when they were like going to perform it live, they're like, you know what, we should just go back in and kick ass again. Right.
Yeah. I feel like in the context of the record, it almost has to do that, because they do it with that seventh chord that they kind of extend and roll up the keyboard a little bit with. And I think it's needed because everything else is so just, like fist in your mouth intense,
Fist fuck. Yeah. Well, that's what's awesome about it too, is it just such a great contrast. It makes it more, it's so much more twisted. right?
Yeah.
Like it makes it so much more twisted because it's like, man, we're going to have all this intense, dark, raw, dirty shit. And then you're going to see like just like a beautiful glimpse of light for a minute, right?
Yeah.
So
and everything is all right. And then it goes into Closer.
Yes.
Now, okay, so this has to be a top song, even though it was the single. And I remember this video being weird as hell because it would come on MTV all the time. And of course, it was censored, but you were very keen on what they were saying. And
well, and even
dude, it's always
beyond the
just
lyrics,
had such a dude. It's just got a really awesome, driving, hot beat.
Yeah.
Great riff.
Yeah. It's, and like you said, you were just talking about the video, it was, censored, lyrically in some parts. And I'm sure a lot of radio stations censored that as well. But the video just, they didn't like the monkey on the cross showing him in bondage. There was a lot of things that they had to cut out. And I thought it was fun and creative how they did it. I was like, they put something black on the screen. It was like scene missing or something like that, and, this was, I probably didn't see the uncut, the full one until I got the Mark Harmonic DVD. And if people haven't seen that, it's really great. It's from the director's series, and it has the uncut version of it, which I know you can get on YouTube now. You might be able to get the interviews and behind the scenes of them just kind of like talking about creating the video and everything they had to go through. They talk about the censorship, and it's great because it's interviews with Trent Reznor and Mark Harmonic and everything. And it's just a, they talk about all Harmonic's videos, but I believe this is the only Nine Inch Nails video he's done. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly, but I know he did this one.
He's like on a nail, like it looks like a big, and he's just like spinning around or something.
Oh, he was like on a cable, and he was like spinning around and stuff. And they said that they almost like, I guess they kind of forgot about him, and he kept spinning and spinning, and then he like came down and went over and threw up in the garbage can or something. So, but funny. in a weird way, man. And now this is not my scratch, so no spoiler alert here. But there's a part of me that feels like this song stands out from the rest of the tracks on the album, and I think it's because it's so the beat, the rhythm.
It's the accessible one.
Yeah, it does, and it has like it does have like this sexiness to it, like it just does. There's something about it that to me it sort of evokes those emotions more. Yeah. Well, definitely more than any other song on the album.
I don't know if it does. Maybe not necessarily consensual, but yes.
Maybe not lyrically. No, but dude, I just think I think the beat and the tone completely does. It's awesome. It's great, man.
Now I like how they have that melody at the end of this, much like they do at the end of Piggy, and that melody comes back.
It does.
And to me, those melodies are like cousins. They're very closely related, and they belong on the same record, but they're not the same.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
and they do them in a similar way too. It almost sounds like the way it sounds as if they were recorded on an acoustic on an old acoustic piano, and you're listening to it on a record, and you walk by the record player and it kind of wobbles a little bit. That's kind of the feeling that what it sounds like.
I could
this is what the world sounds like to me.
Yeah, this is what the world sounds like. So we go to track 6, Ruiner. Dude, this one reminds me a lot of Heresy.
It just, absolutely.
The pulsating synth in the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it is a little bit more of a, I don't know if I guess I'll say like a straightforward song for this album.
Yeah, it's a very happy song.
It is very, very happy. But dude, when that heavy part comes in and he sings like, how'd you get so big? How'd you get so strong? Like, dude, I just love the weight and the heaviness of that sound of just like just how thick those synths come in, man. It's so badass.
And again, this has that it almost sounds like a creaking door, but it has that weird sample that goes with the beat that just gives it that general, like crawling up your back sort of a feeling.
Right. Definitely.
And it would have been a great song without it. But it's funny. I mean, you always knew those were there, but until I really read about it and knew what they were, it's just such the chef's kiss for the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, one thing he does do a little different on this one is there's that middle section where it's kind of the obvious section of the song where you put a solo in, and he does put a solo in, but dude, it's all fucked up. It's all weird. It's like, it's so weird. So it's like the obvious place to put a solo in, and he kind of lets it hang there for a minute before the solo starts. But it's very disjointed and raw and almost in a weird way, like doesn't fit, which I think is sort of the point. But yeah, I've always really liked this song a lot as well. So.
I like the next track a lot, The Becoming, because sometimes those ones, much like Heresy and Ruiner, they have that consistent. It almost reminds me more of like a pulsating sort of techno style beat, even though this is very far from techno. Not saying that at all. Just sort of that consistent drum and like bass and snare kind of thing. Now, what I like about The Becoming is it's more chopped up. It's a little slower, and the synth adds some to that as well. But it just
and the screaming people in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. No, here's the thing. If I play a song as just like a one-off from this album, it's this song. Like, I'll just put it on. Like this has always been one of my, if not my favorite song on the album. And to me, I love, so one thing is when they play it live, it's sweet because he starts it off on the piano. Like, that's how he starts playing the opening part is on the he plays it on the piano. And then having that acoustic part come in the beginning with in the middle with the strumming and everything. I love it because I feel like it's this, like, he's like letting you up for air for like a minute before he pushes your head underwater again. You know what I mean? But you do have this like little like burst of light that kind of comes through, and then
down there somewhere. Let me take another look.
Take another look. Yeah. But it's dude, definitely one of my favorite songs off the album.
Yeah.
Then I'll say, interestingly enough, now on the vinyl, this is where we flip discs. So this is where we go to disc 2 on the vinyl. And I also feel like, though, this is where the album for me like takes a sort of a sharp left turn. I feel like it really changes. I feel like it gets much. Yeah, I do. I really feel like the songs change. I feel like there's not the almost, I don't want to say they don't carry as much melody, but I feel like the songs don't drive and don't, I guess, carry as much melody. I feel like it stays dark, obviously. But I feel like this is where the album actually gets a little more introspective.
Well, yeah. Okay.
And so I just feel like the tone of the album for me has always changed at this part for some reason. I don't know why.
So you actually put it down and maybe you don't want this.
I don't want this.
I don't
even want the second disc. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Just fucking throw it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like the song I Do Not Want This, because I feel like it's different from a lot of them on the album. It's more like I don't know, it's just not as aggressive, at least in the main body of it. It's got
it
a
doesn't
nice
drive,
kind of chopped up,
right?
Yeah, well, I like that kind of syncopated stuff more than just the same.
Sure, yeah.
You know, but I not that there hasn't been acoustic piano up to this point, but it's just a lot. It's clear. It seems relatively undistorted or, altered.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't know just how I feel, so
yeah, you don't.
Yeah, so who can all relate to that? So then we go.
Just remember, feelings are not objective reality. Just remember that.
Yeah, words of wisdom from Grimm.
Not from me, but people should remember that.
All right, man. Big Man with a Gun. Bob Dole's favorite song on the album.
Well, I could see that. It's funny because I guess it was actually written as like sort of a satire about like this whole gangster rap culture.
Gangster rap.
In sharp contrast to what they were doing at the time.
Even though this was being labeled as that, I
thought it would be more against the super gun rights people, but I guess maybe that wasn't as much of a thing then as
back then. No, it's not. It's not. Yeah. This one did, catch, I think, a lot of flack. It was like one of the songs they like picked out and they were like, yeah, it's this one. Right.
I wonder why. I mean,
yeah. But even Trent Reznor, he even said though about like the album as a whole, he's like, he said the album, it could be harmful, through implying and subliminally suggesting things. I don't even know how subliminal you'd really have to be. I mean, I can see where one would connect the dots there.
This is actually pretty direct.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely caught some flack, but people were like they even said like somebody who was against the song actually classified it as a rap song and they were like saying it was like gangster rap and stuff, and it's just like, oh, come on, don't be these dumbass lame old white politicians who don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like
the funny thing about that is every time we think, oh man, once our generation gets into office, things are going to be different, but it's really just the same thing. A bunch of out of touch rich
assholes,
honkies. Yeah, like it. I don't know. That's never going to change. But the other one that they actually had a big problem with and almost didn't make the album subsequently was A Warm Place, just because of all
it was so. It was too. Just the lyrics were just too much. Too much. Okay, so
they could tell like he was basically saying all these horrible things to do, but it was just turned down just enough so that it's like it was filling people's minds like, with
if you play
things.
If you play the song backwards and upside down, like
at 3 times speed.
Yeah.
But this is where we get the revival of the riff from Closer.
Oh, okay.
And I can't tell if it was done on a hammered dulcimer or a prepared piano, because it sounds like a plucked string, right? It does not sound like a piano where it's being hit with a hammer. And so that would either lead me to believe it was a dulcimer, which is a different kind of way to trigger that, or just plucking the strings of a piano, because it certainly doesn't. It has a ringing that a guitar string wouldn't have.
All right. So Trent, if you're watching, just let us know. We'd be very, very curious.
After you subscribe and comment below.
Yeah, exactly. So, and check out our episode on the Fragile and with Teeth. You'll like them. We. This is an interesting and probably a good spot for like an instrumental song like this. It does again. Yeah. It gives us time to breathe for more than a quick second. Now, I could also, just with the sort of the song, the space in the feel of it, I could make the argument that it would feel it would belong on the Fragile, because I feel like the Fragile has like more of that sound and tone and everything. And it just doesn't feel as like, again, this is, is claustrophobic, I guess, as the rest of the album. So I could see it, see that song being,
but it's, again, in the subtleties in the background, it's like, you just kind of get these like buzzing and these just weird textural things that still make it
here's the
a
thing.
Little off.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to get too deep into all the meaning and stuff because, I'm probably way off on a bunch of stuff, but it's interesting. Like if you do follow this and sort of follow this is, I guess you want to say is like a story, and someone who's going through a lot of, depression, mixed emotions, drug addiction, all this stuff.
Freeway killers.
A song like A Warm Place is like, it's like this, a warm place. It's like this spot where, things are just kind of like leveled out for a minute. And you think, oh, like I'm good. I'm okay. But then, dude, Eraser comes in, right? And dude, it slowly builds. And when I feel like it almost sounds like insects like starting to like buzz around your head, and it just, dude, it slowly builds up. And just like when you thought like, oh, dude, I'm out of it, I'm good. Like it slowly creeps back in, man. And dude, it just gives me like such an uneasy feeling.
I know. Now, Eraser is one that I could just put on as a
standalone,
as a one-off. Yeah, dude. Always like this one.
Well, dude, it's interesting, man, because it just it's slowly, like, I forget, I don't know how long is the song? The song is just under 5 minutes, but dude, the first like 3.5 minutes, it's just building and has this long intro before he starts like singing and really getting into it. It's pretty cool, man.
And is that the one? Yeah, it's the guitar.
So.
Like the way you just kind of bending them until it digs into your fingers. Like that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I want to listen to that now.
I know. I want to listen to it again. So, which is a good thing, man. Even though it was emotionally draining, and I listened to it yesterday, and I listened to it today, I kind of want to listen to it again. Like I really do.
Me too.
So, I think part of it's I haven't had my time with this album for a while, so it's like you do have to sort of be kind of like in the right headspace. At least I do, in the right headspace to be like, I'm just gonna listen to the Downward Spiral. So.
Yeah, which is funny because I, in our quest to always hold up the vinyls, I do not have this one on vinyl, but they have a copy of it at the library that people can take out. And I'm like, would not have thought that this would be in that collection, but here we are.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Kids, get this with your KDL library card, the Downward Spiral.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Track 12, Reptile. I feel like, to me, this is the most industrial song on the album. Like the way it the way it begins, it has like this factory sound loop, and then like when the beat comes in, it's very mechanical, very systematic. Like to me, it sounds like something almost like there's like stuff in the background going on, and I'm like, dude, I feel like this is like Terminator movements, like when you hear the like the robot and stuff moving and whatnot.
Yeah,
like
there's some Skynet in there for sure.
There's definitely, yeah. But I feel like this. I guess
the acoustic guitar in the middle, though. That's an interesting contrast. I wouldn't say middle, but in like the breaks, the contrast is nice.
Yeah.
Now, do you like this song Reptile better, or Reptile on Them Crooked Vultures, Reptiles? On that would have been a good songs of the same name.
Oh well.
Thanks, fans. That was a great format that we thought was cool.
But thought it was great. No one else did. Well, they just weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I felt like this song, I got a very like Pretty Hate Machine vibe on it. And so maybe that's where I kind of like, I identify with it there.
Okay.
Now, Grim, we go to the title track.
Yeah, we do.
The Downward Spiral. Yeah. So this has, I guess, sort of like
it's kind of going down.
Well, it has a long, dreary kind of opening, which makes sense. But dude, it also sounds like he's playing, the ending piano part of what do you call it? Of Closer. it sounds like he's like plucking that and playing that on the acoustic guitar, which I think is really cool. And then like in the background, I feel like I hear sort of like these tones from Hurt and stuff come in. Now, and again, this is a tough one. I can see how people would take issue with the lyrics. Not
really sure why.
He put the gun into his face, bang, so much blood for such a tiny little hole. Problems do have solutions, a lifetime of fucking things up fixed. Okay, like I know we're nitpicking, but it's, this, man, this is just some intense heavy shit, but it's the title track, and it really ties the album together. All right.
Oh, absolutely. Just with that little hole and all the,
yeah.
And then Hurt is almost like the PS in a letter.
Well, a lot of people have the theory that it is like essentially like a suicide note. People have that theory.
Oh, that's actually a real. I'm going to say it's true. It's true.
Other people say it basically describes the difficult decision to find a reason to live in spite of all the depression and pain. So those are just two of the theories that I've read about. I'm sure people out there have other theories. And
I like theory one. I think that's right. And in this age, all you got to do is state your opinion as if it's a fact, and apparently that holds.
It does.
So
yeah. But
what you know what Costanza says? It's not a lie if you believe it.
Makes sense. We won't get into the sort of the Johnny Cash part of this because we have done a full episode on the Johnny Cash 9 Inch Nails cover.
So, do your thing.
So check it out on our channel.
Now, this is where I wanted to talk about. It's interesting to listen to in headphones, and you hear like the deliberately disturbed parts, and it's just it really makes sense musically with the context of the album.
Yeah. I need to check it on headphones. Yeah. I should have listened to this album on headphones. I don't know why I did, because it is with the production and the things that he does, like, listening to it on your computer or even on vinyl, if you got a good stereo, but man, you're going to hear so many more textures and layers of things that, we're just not picking up, like just,
and the panning is just better because everything's more or less isolated. There's no crossover, no bleed, and you really kind of get that, but yeah.
So, all right, Graham. Well, this is the part of the show where we have to scratch a track. And now this is very hard to do on this album because it's a great album. It's a classic album.
As it is with everyone.
No
exception.
But if you want to play the game, you got to play the game. So.
Now, what are you going to scratch with on this one?
I don't know.
I mean, you can't really scratch with a gun. I guess you could shoot a hole in it. Because that seems like the weapon of choice here.
I don't know, though, dude. There's a part of me that just feels like I feel like a jagged, like rusty nail or something like that. Just
a 9-inch long one.
A 9-inch long rusty just nail.
Yeah.
So
like a railroad spike.
Exactly. So are you scratching first or am I?
I think you are. I feel like this is the one you got to scratch first.
Okay. Yeah. For me, it wasn't that hard. Although I felt like this did give us a moment or a few moments just to kind of collect ourselves before the rest of the album. But I'm going to go ahead and scratch A Warm Place. The instrumental track of the album. I like it. I think it fits the album. And if you want to talk about sort of if you want to get into, a deep concept and everything, I think having this song and then how it kind of flows into Eraser and how Eraser builds, I think it's great. But it's also like probably not a song I just need to have on. And like I said, like I get a lot of that space and everything. If I want to hear that, that's kind of when I put on the Fragile. So
Wow, I was getting ready to hit the horn, but no such luck today.
Yeah. What do you got?
Well, never thought I'd put it like this, but I'm going to go ahead and side with Mr. Bob Dole and scratch a big band with a gun. Because to me, that's like, put it this way. If the movie Requiem for a Dream was a song, it would be this song. It's like, I've listened to it. I understand what it is, but I don't ever need to listen to it again.
Right.
And I honestly, like, I would probably skip this one regularly just because it's so... I mean, it's like every school shooting put to music. It's a little too much for me. I don't need to go that far down into the depths.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's hard to argue with that. But
that's why I picked it.
So it's not.
That's why I'm listening. Well, that's why I say him.
It's not the one you'll just put on. Be like, man, I really like. I haven't heard enough of Big Man with the Gun. Well, it also a pretty short track.
Like if somebody were to say, "Hey, can you tell me what is the best thing ever about Nine Inch Nails in 3 minutes and 22 seconds?" I just put on 3 minutes and 22 seconds of a different song.
There's got to be a song, dude. A Warm Place, which is 3 minutes and 22 seconds. So.
Oh shit! Sorry, I meant 1 minute and 36 seconds. I looked at the wrong line.
Yeah. So
yeah, you have 1 minute and 36 seconds to tell me about Nine Inch Nails. Go, and I'd be like, well, listen to like with like 136 left of Closer or Piggy.
Exactly. So. Well, Grim, I think that pretty much wraps us up here. It has been a wonderful time discussing this album. As intense and heavy and dark as it is, I find it absolutely beautiful, and I'm really glad.
I'm ready for a therapy session. I don't know about you.
I already had mine. I'm good. So maybe I'll just listen to this album instead. But yeah, I think that wraps it up. What do you say, Grim?
Yeah, give us the nod below.
Like, subscribe, and comment below.
What would you scratch and why? Do you agree with Bob Dole?
Don't say your balls.
What the fuck is that shit?
So,
on that note, it is time to go on the Dude and Grim Show. Doing Grim Show.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grim. Additional music provided by Moore and the Tins. Copyright 2023. The Dude and Grim Show.